Brian Davis here, founder of Spark Rental, and I'm super excited to be with you. Today we have a special guest, Mike Morawski from My Core Intentions. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Brian, for having me. It's an honor to join you today.
Absolutely. So we have a kind of unique conversation today. Mike's career trajectory has taken a very unique path, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it. He's made a lot of money in real estate. He's lost a lot of money in real estate, and he has started over from scratch later in his career in real estate. So, Mike, let's rewind the clock to the very beginning of your real estate career and talk about how you got started. How you were funding your deals and some of the mistakes you made, and just the very beginning. Let's rewind to year one in Mike Morawski's career.
Yeah, so, I love this conversation, and especially this part of it, because it just kind of goes to show, I think, who I am at the core, and it's somebody who doesn't give up, right? And I think that in real estate's one of those professions you can't give up in. I think right now we're looking at a housing market that's probably going to fall out here pretty soon, and don't give up. Keep going after it, because there's going to be great opportunity. So, I got in real estate. I came from a construction background, and it was funny because I had a very successful construction company, and I woke up one morning, looked at my wife at the time, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I was still banging nails. I was going on bids. I was bidding projects. I was pricing projects. I was doing bookkeeping. I was marketing. I was scheduling. I was done. I was cooked. And so sold the company, and thank God I had somebody knocking at the door who wanted to buy my company. And so they bought my company, and I took a year off. And during that year, my wife and we house hacked a couple of houses. Now, Brian, this is long before, and you said it earlier, middle age, so go ahead, ask him that. But, long before it was the sexy thing to do, now everybody does it, right? So I house hacked a couple houses, and I come from a space. Go ahead.
Let me pause you just for a moment, because there are a lot of different ways to house hack. So how did you go about house hacking?
Yeah, so I bought a 2-flat, and we lived in one unit, and renovated the other one, and then moved into the other one and renovated that one. So we did that twice over a year, and I thought I took a year off, but I really didn't. Kind of fun, but I come from the school that success leaves clues. I heard Jim Rohn say years ago, if you follow successful people, it'll cut your learning curve, and it'll help you be more successful in a shorter period of time. So I met a real estate agent along the way who was extremely successful at the time. And I went to him and I said, hey, Todd, I think I'd like to go in the real estate business. He said, I think you'd be great at it. And he encouraged me to do it. So again, success leaves clues. I go to him and I say, hey, could I shadow you and your team? And he says, no. I was a little terrified. He said, I'm going to do better than that. Okay. He said, I'll make a cassette tape for you. And he made me this cassette tape. It was 45 minutes long, and I devoured it. I listened to it over and over and over again. It became my core. It became part of my DNA and who I was. And I went into the business and just initiated those fundamentals he taught me on a daily basis, simple daily fundamentals. And my first 9 months in the business, I sold 78 houses. I was RE/MAX Rookie of the Year. I went on to build a successful team. We were selling 125 listings a year, and did that for about 10 years consecutively.
Okay. Now, were you investing during this time as well, or sticking with just being a real estate agent?
Yeah, I was a real estate agent. I followed a coach trainer back then who one of his mantras was buy your best listing once a quarter. And I probably bought my best listing twice a year. So I was doing a little bit of investing, but not at the scale that I did down the road. Yeah. So, and I want people to take that comment to heed, because if you're in the real estate business, you should be your best client. You really should be buying your listings or finding properties to buy. You need to be your best client in the real estate business. Here's the other thing he also said is if you're broke and you need money, go buy a piece of real estate. And he was running, you always made a commission from it, right?
I like it. So how did you make the transition to investing more frequently and eventually, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but you eventually managed a fund, right? So how did that transition take place in your career?
So, 10 years, I built a team. We were very successful. I had 7 people working for me. 2005 rolls around and I see the market starting to shift. I see that the housing market getting really out of proportion, very distorted, similar to what I'm seeing today. And I just want people to understand that I see a lot of shades today of what I saw back in 2007 and 2008, and walk cautiously. Don't not invest. Don't not be in real estate. Just walk cautiously. That's all. So, as the market started to unravel a little bit, I was like, I need to go do something different. I'd always wanted to be in the apartment business. When I was in the construction business, I did a lot of work for a couple of large apartment REITs in Chicago, and I understood the model. I understood you raise private equity, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle. As long as everything goes well, everybody makes money. So 2005, I syndicate my first apartment deal. That's where you find a great real estate deal and bring private capital to that deal. That's syndicating it, where you're bringing a bunch of partners to a deal. And I did my first one in 2005, and I thought, this is great. I'm going to be able to raise a ton of money and build a business. And
this was an apartment complex?
Yeah, it was a small 11-unit deal outside of Chicago. And I knew that Chicago wasn't a market that I was going to make money in. So what I did was I didn't know anything. I came from the residential side into the apartment side. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the business. I didn't understand underwriting. I didn't understand the traps. I didn't understand due diligence. I didn't understand exit planning. So I needed to learn everything, and I learned it by some of the mistakes I made, right? But along the way. So I buy this first deal, and I raised capital to do it. I put a little ad in the newspaper that said real estate investors wanted. And when people called me, I said, hey, here's what I'm doing. I wound up raising from that $45 ad about $600,000 over the next 7 or 8 months. It was best investment I ever made. So, but yeah, I did that first deal, learned that I wasn't going to make any money in Chicago, that the fundamentals weren't sound enough. I went to my broker that I was working with at the time. We crafted a buying strategy, a buying plan, and I went off into other markets. I wound up buying 4,000 apartments. It was 4,000 apartments. I raised $18 million. It was $60 million worth of real estate, and we did that in about 30 months.
And how many buildings was that?
Oh, it was 38 different properties.
Okay.
I couldn't even begin to tell you how many buildings. So
but 38 properties, though.
Yes, 38 properties, 5 markets. And then I also scaled a property management company where we were managing 7,500 units at the time, and built that out. So, Brian, I built a company pretty close to about $100 million in value.
That's incredible. So you were syndicating those 38 deals individually, or did you start pooling funds?
Yeah, I had a couple of small funds where we were paying a higher interest rate in those, but that was for fix and flips and some short-term capital that we needed. But those apartment deals were all standalone LLC, offerings.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like everything's going great up to this point. So what happened?
2008 happened out of Lehman Brothers by the droves. And I look at my CFO and I go, we're screwed, aren't we? And he goes, yeah, we're in big trouble. And I did not understand the magnitude of that comment at that moment. I thought, hey, listen, this is a recession. Recessions last 17 or 18 months. There's a 10 or 12% correction in the market. The market's bounced back. We'll be back to normal in a few months, right? 2010 rolls around and we're still upside. We're more upside down than we were during that conversation. Mm. So I wind up coming off the rails. And here's what happened is I had companies, I had 38 companies. Some were very profitable, some were not. And what I started to do was move money from profitable companies to non-profitable companies. Again, I thought this reception had bounced back. My attorney, my accountant, they both said, hey, you can move money, just put it back when the markets change. Leave a paper trail so that you do it legally. We did that. We left a paper trail. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't tell my investors that I was moving money. So as a result of non-disclosure, I wind up getting charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. And, you know, I had a company that I was trying to save that turned upside down, that I didn't want any of my investors to get hurt.
And you did go to prison, right?
I did. I went to prison in 2013. And it was for non-disclosure, right? So because I didn't tell my investors I was moving the money and I was trying to save the company, I always tell people, I say, hey, I never flew private. I didn't have a big boat. I didn't have a fancy car. I was the neighborhood baseball coach. I was the father who went on the field trips with the kids from school. You know, I was home every night for dinner. My wife and I had a great marriage. We were best friends. And I got ripped from that life to live in a room, a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like, and had 3 green outfits and 5 pairs of underpants, wondering what the hell happened to my life. And so I was in prison about 17 days thinking my life was over and what was I going to do? And my wife decided she was going to divorce me. And when that happened, it wrecked me. And I walked around wondering, you know, how am I going to get through today, much less 10 years of this? And, you know, we all have these defining moments, right? So I was in prison about 6 weeks, and I walk in the gym. And here's what I always tell people. I say I was just window shopping. I wasn't looking to buy anything. I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight and hating myself. And I walk in the gym, and this guy walks up to me, and he says, hey, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take from you everything you've ever known. They can take your money, they can take your real estate, they can take your business, they can destroy your family, but what they can't take is who you are. So get that 10 years back. Come to the gym, start working out, start losing weight. You'll start feeling better about yourself. And I did that. And before I knew it, I'm losing weight, I'm feeling better. I wind up going to college. I get a bachelor's degree in theology. I write 2 books. One is Exit Plan. That's your complete guide to multifamily investing and why you need an exit plan before you buy. I'd love to give all your listeners a copy at the end of the show. And I wrote a book on property management. I also wrote a ethics course. I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 6 years. I was on an outreach program, went into the community, told my story, 40 times to local businesses and small business owners. I met a professor from the University of Minnesota, and he and I co-authored a paper in the Business Journal of Ethics it got published this year in the Business Journal of Ethics. Wow. And it was an ethics case study, and it gets taught today at the collegiate level. So I really made some changes and some shifts. Today I'm in the coaching and training space teaching multifamily investors how to scale their business but live a quality lifestyle.
So when did you leave prison?
I came home the week they closed the world down for the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Talk about timing.
Yeah.
So you got out. Now your real estate portfolio, was that taken away?
We had actually done, prior to being indicted, we had done what's called a voluntary receivership. So it's similar to going bankrupt, but you don't go bankrupt. We voluntarily turned all of the assets over to a receiver that typically would get appointed by a court, but we didn't go through the court process. We just did it on our own. I often tell people, I say, hey, you want to go into business? Go into the receivership business. It's legal theft. Because what you pay a receiver and what a receiver gets paid for managing real estate, man, you can work your way out of a hole for what you pay them. So.
But you also had some personal properties too, right? Beyond the syndication deals that you had done. So did those stay with you, or did you lose those along the way?
So what's interesting is, kind of, I always say hindsight's 20/20, but I'd always thought about asset protection and protecting my personal wealth, right? Like the personal house I live in, my personal assets, trying to keep 2 or 3 arms lengths away from my business operations. And I did pretty good at setting that up over the years. And so my ex-wife, still has some of that real estate today. And I built a property management company before I went to prison. The day I got indicted, I looked at my wife and I said, hey, I'm going to go to prison. We don't know for how long. And we have 2 choices. I can either build a small company for you that you can run and keep you and the kids in the house, or I can, give you an envelope with some money in it, and you're going to wind up having to have to go get a job. So I built a property management company that she actually still runs and manages today.
Okay.
Yeah, small residential property. When I went to prison, we managed about 220 units. 220 doors, and it was pretty lucrative, scattered site housing deal. So,
all right. So, but your wife ended up taking most of your personally owned properties.
Yeah.
So you got out of prison and you were basically starting completely from scratch, real estate wise. And so, how have you been investing since getting out of prison?
Great question, Brian. So since I've been out, I talk about this redemption piece, right? I did all this stuff while I was in prison. I came out. Since I've been out, I started my company. I've done a number of live events. I published a book. I am in the coaching business. I coach people. Got approved by the Illinois Real Estate Board to go back and get my real estate license. I chose not to because I don't need it for what I do. Okay. I just wanted to know that I could get approved if I wanted to. I also got approved by the SEC to go back and be a sponsor and an issuer of deals. So we are
more syndication deals.
Yes, absolutely. So I partner with some of my coaching clients that I work with. When I find a coaching client who is, similar in thought process and core values, and that wants to move the ball forward. We're getting ready to close a deal right now. I also went back into the property management business with a coaching client. So really have kind of started to evolve and move the whole thing around again. So life's a different place today. And here's what I want people to understand. Look, there's hope, and there's hope in this story. There's inspiration in this story. I had all this success. I lost everything, and I'm not letting my past define me. I could lay down and not do anything, right?
A lot of people do.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in prison with guys that did. Listen, there were a lot of guys in prison that took my real estate class that are home doing real estate today. I had a leading gang member from a big national gang come up to me the night before he went home and said, hey man, if I'd have known I could have made this much money in real estate, I'd have never sold drugs.
It's a great quote.
And so it just those types of things, where as crappy as it was, and going away, and my family being fractured, and my businesses being lost, and all the investors that got hurt, I did a lot of good too, and today I'm back. My goal today is just to help people learn how to scale a business, but not lose sight of what's important. Brian, I'm sure you know as well as I do that in the real estate business, it's really easy to lose perspective and to lose, what's important, right? And
no question. And, one of the things I love about your story is that sometimes the most expensive lessons are the ones that you learn the best, right? Yeah. So, I lost a ton of money in real estate after the housing crash in 2008. And I turned around, and for a long time after that, I wondered, why should anyone listen to me, talk about real estate investing when I lost all this money? And I realized I just paid a ton of tuition for my real estate investing education. And I learned firsthand, a whole wide range of mistakes, that I have not made since, and my investments have been way better since then. So there is an enormous value in these past mistakes when you turn around and actually learn from them and keep investing. To circle back around to your point at the very beginning of the episode, real estate investing is really a game of perseverance.
Hey, I think so many people, Brian, talk about their success, right? But they don't talk about the failure, right? And there's a big message in the mistakes that we make.
No question. No question. So Christina asked here, what advice you would give someone who's interested in getting started in real estate syndications, putting together syndication deals?
Great question, Christina. And what I think that there's a couple of different things I'd look at. First of all, I'd walk cautiously today. I see a lot of shades of 2007, 2008. We are going to have a housing crisis in this country. It will not be as drastic as it was, but the bottom's going to fall out. There's going to be a burst to this bubble. We can't go on, a long time like this. So just watch it. Will it affect the commercial industry? I don't think as much as it did last time. Now, I'm not an economist, but I just want people to pay attention. Listen to everything you can listen to right now. Make your own choices and decisions. If you're going into syndication business, I would go into the syndication business in markets that have high rent growth and have high population migration right now. I wouldn't be investing in markets that are average or anywhere below average, trying to speculate on the come, because I don't think it's going to come. You need to be in markets like I'm heavily vested in Tampa, South Central Florida right now. I'm heavily, we're heavily looking at Dallas, Houston right now. Markets that we have, why are people moving to those markets? Quality of life. They're moving their taxes.
Low taxes.
Right. Red versus blue in some cases. So, so just pay attention to where you're investing. Make sure you underwrite conservatively. I said, 5 mistakes I made, right? I grew too fast. I was undercapitalized. I was over leveraged. I didn't pay attention to the details, and I didn't listen to people around me when they said, I don't trust your partner. It's not that it was all his fault, because I broke the law. I made my own choices and decisions, but there were other things that happened, and I just don't go into those because I don't need to throw anybody under the bus. So underwrite cautiously. I'm underwriting differently today. I'm looking at deals at 65% loan to value versus 75%. I'm looking at increased in interest rates. I'm looking at low rent growth. I'm looking at higher terminal cap rates. So, what are your standards? What's negotiable and non-negotiable for you? Take a close look at that. If you don't have standards in place, I would sit down and say, what are my buying standards? What are my exit standards? Build an exit plan. I think there's a lot there to that answer. I don't think it's just one thing, but it's a lot to think about. So.
And how did you go about raising capital from people? Because that's a huge part of syndicating deals, right? Is raising money from people that are not necessarily your best friends or family members, right? I mean, they're in many cases strangers. So you put an ad out originally, but how else have you gone about raising money from people that you don't necessarily know very well?
So I used to run that ad all the time. It was just a small little classified ad. And what I did was I funneled people to a seminar that I did twice a week. So I would bring investors to my office. I'd put 20 new faces on Tuesday and Thursday night in my office at dinner time for a 40-minute presentation. I taught from the principles, and I taught out of Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and I taught those fundamental principles. And at the end of my 45-minute presentation, I'd go, oh, by the way, we have this deal we're doing. And that's how I raised money. I also did some events. So there was a very large networking event that happened once a month in my market. It was 500 people would show up on a Sunday night to go to a real estate investment seminar event. It was an exchange, and I'd have a table there. And I'd talk to people about property management, and I'd talk to people about syndications. And also during that time, Donald Trump used to have these events. They were real estate events. He only did it for a couple of years. They were weekend events. He did them in LA, Dallas, Chicago, and New York. And we did the LA and Dallas and Chicago events twice, one year, each one the next year. Cost me about $30,000 for each one of those events.
Wow.
But I raised $18 million in 30 months. And I think most of my people came from those events. So here's the short. The short is that we are in a relationship business. You have to be out there every single day building relationships with people. You can't go to people and say, hey, Brian, I got this great deal. Do you want to invest in it? You have to go to Brian and say, hey, Brian, listen, how do I add value to your life? What can I do to help lift you up, to build your world, to help you grow? And I say that, and I don't want it to come across as like a sales thing, right? That's who I am. I mean,
you have to give first.
Yeah.
If you want to win people's trust and respect.
And I that's a core value of mine. I've always been like that. But I'm more like that today than I ever was before. But that's always been a core value of mine. I read a book a long time ago by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, probably one of the greatest books ever written, right? And, it just, how do we go out there and build relationships? But one of the first lessons that I teach my coaching clients is you have to be out every single day building relationships with people.
So just to clarify, the people that you raise money with for these syndication deals, these are accredited investors only, not retail investors?
No, back then, the way we raised money was under what's called Blue Sky. It was an exemption. And that Blue Sky exemption allowed us to bring in non-accrediteds up to a certain amount. So, yeah, we would bring non-accreds into our deals as well as accredited investors. Today I'm doing a deal. It's a 506B. So, we have a little bit more of that flexibility for a non-accredited investor in there too. So
it allows up to 35 non-accredited investors, but don't they have to be sophisticated?
Yeah, I think it's up to 38. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. You might be right. So.
So just for the audience, for anyone who's not familiar with that terminology, an accredited investor is a wealthy investor, someone with a net worth over $1 million or income over $200,000 for each of the last 2 years, or $300,000 if you're married.
Right.
Well, Mike, before we wrap up, I want to talk about what you're doing today with mycoreintentions.com. So tell us a little about what your company does, how you help people, and what you're up to, and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. So first of all, I'd like to, if anybody wants my book, go download it. It's you can go to my website at mycoreintentions.com/exit plan. And I wrote the book because I think there's so many great trainers and teachers out there, and they all teach you how to find a deal, buy a deal, and operate a deal. Nobody teaches us how to get out. And I always wanted to teach people how to get out. So I'm in the coaching and training business. A couple of my core beliefs are teach people how to exit, teach people how to underwrite. Those are two things that I'm really good at and I work with people on. And of course, relationship building and locating and finding deals and all the other stuff that needs to go into building a successful business. I wind up partnering with some of my coaching clients, and I only take on a few coaching clients that I personally work with throughout the year. But I'm a hands-on, in the trenches, right alongside you kind of investor. I have an underwriter that works with us to help underwrite deals that we're working on, and we are looking at deals all the time. If we find a deal, we're going to try and find one of our coaching clients to partner with. I actually just went back in the property management business with a coaching client of mine who had been after me for a while. So we're I'm coaching and training. I'm in the syndication business, raising capital for our deals, and I'm in the management business. So.
Well, one of the things that I'm sure you found is that when you're so involved in so many different people's lives within this industry, you just can't help but come across good deals and other people who are looking to partner with you on good deals. So, just being out there every day, like you said, in the trenches, you just can't help but find these deals and find people who are interested in doing these deals with you. So, and that's something that we have found at Spark Rental as well. We earlier this year, we started doing what we call co-investing deals, where we let people partner with us on small single-family rental deals, deals that no one else is doing because, there's not enough money in it for the person who organizes the deal. We don't structure them as a syndication, but it's a similar concept where, we have junior investors who are partnering with us, for fractional ownership of deals, but they're such small deals that, there's not a ton of, there's no money in it for us. But it's fun. And we get to show people the behind the scenes of real estate investing for their first deal, so that they can then go out and do the same on their own. And it sounds like you're doing a similar thing, just on a much larger scale, with large multifamily deals instead of these, small single family rentals. But just being out there. And I guess where I was going with that is that because we are working with people every day in this space, we end up coming across good deals, people who want to partner on good deals, obviously people who fund and finance these deals. And just being involved in the industry, you can't help but have these opportunities come your way. So
for sure. Well spoken.
And by the way, you guys, I put a link in the comments to mycoreintentions.com/exit plan, and we'll put that in the show notes as well for anyone listening to the podcast recording. Mike, do you have any final thoughts or tips or lessons that you want to share before we call this episode complete?
I just want people, I come from an old carpenter mentality. Measure twice, cut once.
Right.
Make sure your underwriting is good. Make sure your rent comps are solid. Know why you used a rent comp when you are comparing rental bumps, rental increases. Don't just arbitrarily say, I think because, make sure you look at it. I have a great, underwriting tool that we've built over 20 years. And it's a very sensitive analysis. And when you do a sensitivity test or a what if test, I'm a big what if guy, right? What if this happens? What if I buy it at this price? What if the cap rate does this? So I want to ask those questions. People tell me sometimes, man, you ask so many questions, but you know what? I think those are what gets us to the answer, right? Is the deal worth doing? So, just walk cautiously. If you need help or accountability, reach out to somebody. I'm in the coaching business, but I'm also open to networking. Call me, email me. I love conversations with people. I love to build relationships. So, never know where it'll go. So.
Absolutely. Well, two other quick notes that are related to your point. One is we added a link to our free rental property calculator for cash flow that I added to the links there. Use that to run the numbers and help you underwrite. And to Mike's point, it never hurts to get a second opinion from another real estate investor, to just get a fresh set of eyes from someone who knows what they're doing. Whether that is Mike himself or just someone else in the industry, you can always email me as well or Denny. But a second set of eyes on a deal, it takes you 5 minutes to get that second opinion, but that 5 minutes can save you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. So,
yeah, and here, don't ever be afraid to pick the phone up, right? This community, for as big as it is and as small as it is, people love to share. Here, yeah. I came home from prison in 2020. I didn't know anybody in the business anymore. My whole world was fractured and falling apart. And I put on a live 3-day event. I have 20 speakers from around the country that come to this platform and speak. And I don't know any of them. So I reached out to people and started building relationships and said, hey, I'm going to do this event. And they were more than willing to do that. But these are people now that are friends of mine that I can reach out to. Brian, if I had a question, I could call you and ask you. I mean, that's how this community works, right? So I want people to know that don't sit on the sidelines and not make decisions or make irrational decisions because you were afraid to call somebody or reach out.
Yeah. And, if there's been one recurring theme of this conversation that we've had, it's relationships.
Yeah.
And how, no matter what industry you're in, the real estate investing industry is just like all the rest, where your relationships matter and your network really does determine your net worth. So on that note, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a fantastic conversation, very educational, and obviously deeply personal. So thank you so much for sharing and being so transparent with us.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I just want people to know if they want to reach out to me, I'm everywhere on social media. So wherever you hang out and get your fix, you'll find me or My Core Intentions there, as well as, hey, direct message me at Mike at My Core Intentions. So.
Well, Mike, thank you so much again. And we will look forward to having you back on the show sometime soon.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Bye now.